Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about this one thing you need to fix your marriage. My guest, Dawn, and her husband had been to 4 marriage counselors, but still, they were so angry with each other that they would yell and fight so much that one counselor wouldn't even see them at the same time. Her husband frequently slept on the couch, but she was shocked when he roared at her that he wanted a divorce. But today, her husband takes her on dates, kisses her goodbye, pats her butt, and even bought her a fabulous convertible. There are no more nights on the sofa, and their sex life is ridiculously steamy. She's going to tell us how she turned it all around so you can do the same thing. And then I'll be giving out the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award, which is a myth that is often repeated by women who are just about to get divorced. Don't fall for it because it's completely hypocritical. All of that's coming up, but first, let's talk about this one thing you need to fix your marriage. Sometimes your marriage looks bleak. You wish it was the way you imagined it was when you said your vows, but you didn't imagine having cold wars without speaking for days. And you didn't imagine he would drink so much or that you would find him so unattractive when he does. You didn't imagine being married and feeling like a single mom when his latest hurtful words and his neglect are still stinging. You can feel like a sucker for falling for a man who isn't even who you thought he was. But that doesn't mean you have to either be miserable ever after or get divorced. So much of your experience is in your power, which is why I've gathered some inspirational quotes to help you rekindle your optimism and get filled with the energy you need to fix your marriage. Because the one thing you won't be able to fix your marriage without is motivation. So let's get us some of that, shall we? Here are some profound words to remind us all what's possible in marriage to help you get there. For some of us, including me, marriage is our greatest accomplishment. Here's what Nicholas Sparks wrote for the movie The Notebook. I am nothing special. Of this, I'm sure. I'm a common man with common thoughts, and I've led a common life. There are no monuments dedicated to me, and my name will soon be forgotten. But I've loved another with all my heart and soul, and to me, this has always been enough. Winston Churchill was a very accomplished man by any measure, and he wrote, "My most brilliant achievement was my ability to be able to persuade my wife to marry me." Being married develops our character and teaches us things we couldn't have learned on our own. Lao Tzu says that being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. Dave Muir wrote, "A great marriage is not when the perfect couple comes together. It's when an imperfect couple learns to enjoy their differences." And Hank Smith says, "Placing blame in marriage is like saying your side of the boat is sinking." Marriage also gives us relief from the aching loneliness we would feel without a special someone, which is eloquently stated in the movie Shall We Dance this way. We need a witness to our lives. There's a billion people on the planet. I mean, what does any one life really mean? But in a marriage, you're promising to care about everything, the good things, the bad things, the terrible things, the mundane things, all of it, all of the time, every day. You're saying, your life will not go unnoticed because I will notice it. Your life will not go unwitnessed because I will be your witness. I love that about being married. But having a spouse doesn't mean that you're never alone. As Khalil Gibran wisely wrote in The Prophet, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls." And when marriage is going well, there's nothing better. As Martin Luther wrote, there is no more lovely, friendly, and charming relationship, communion, or company than a good marriage. Charles Dickens knew this also and wrote, "Come, let's be a comfortable couple and take care of each other. How glad we shall be that we have somebody we are fond of always to talk to and sit with." Marriage can also make us into our best selves. Roy Croft said it this way: "I love you not only for what you are, but for what I am when I'm with you. I love you not only for what you have made of yourself, but for what you are making of me." Marriage is also filled with grace for our shortcomings. There's a Swedish proverb that says, "Love me when I least deserve it, because that's when I really need it." We all need love the most when we deserve it the least. Marriage is also an ongoing lesson in surrender. Marianne Williamson says, and I agree, that something amazing happens when we surrender and just love. We melt into another world, a realm of power already within us. The world changes when we change, and the world softens when we soften. The world loves us when we choose to love the world. Marriage is also a prize that's well worth preserving. Thomas Hardy said that new love is the brightest and long love is the greatest, but revived love is the tenderest thing known on earth. We get to see this a lot on our campus when women learn to revive their marriages and make them shiny again. All of which is to say that to love and be loved is a journey well worth taking and sticking with and being grateful for. So if you're feeling inspired, maybe now is the time to take a small step toward reviving or celebrating the love in your relationship. Maybe you want to make a gratitude list for your man or for the life you've built together. It could be that you find things you appreciate, things that make you happy, and let him know how glad you are about those things that he does or those things that he is for you. It might be that you're vulnerable and let him know that you miss him. Or maybe you'll decide to apologize for not respecting him, which is man speak for saying, "I love you so much." What action will you take to infuse your relationship with inspiration and light today, right now, while you're full of inspiration and feeling the love? If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest, Dawn, and her husband had been to 4 marriage counselors, but still, they were so angry with each other that they would yell and fight so much that one counselor wouldn't even see them at the same time. Her husband frequently slept on the couch, but she was shocked when he roared at her that he wanted a divorce. But today, her husband takes her on dates, kisses her goodbye, pats her butt, and even bought her a fabulous convertible. There are no more nights on the sofa, and their sex life is ridiculously steamy. And she's going to tell us how she turned it all around. Dawn, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your story here.
It's awesome to be here, Laura. Thank you.
So take us back to the bad old days. What was going on?
Golly, it's been so long ago. I've been married 32 years and had a lot of fear, going into relationships and a lot of erroneous notions. And so I was very controlling, and my husband was very compliant. And so I thought he was in agreement with me. And I controlled a lot, and I got very anxious and would blow up instead of him really digging down to find out that I was afraid or I was hurt. So that was really, really hard. And I voluntarily took on everything. I was the breadwinner for a while. I ran the finances. And yeah, when I started staying at home, we started having kids, and his military career picked up. Then yeah, I just took on the discipline of the kids. I decided to homeschool them. I'd ask for his help, and then he'd help, but it wasn't good enough. It wasn't right. I didn't get it. So we really were, I think, for the most part, peaceful, except once or twice a year we'd have a blow up. And um, usually when I would try to politely tell him what he was doing wrong or how he was hurting me, and I didn't get it because I had thought, how can I say this so that he understands, so that I'm respectful and all that. And then we blew up, and then nothing got resolved, and I'd push it all down until it bubbled up again. And then, yeah, really, how long have we been in the military? 20 blah years. I don't know it all. It's all a blur now. And I really think, and my kids started moving out. I have 6 kids, and they're very spread apart. There's 15 years between the oldest and the youngest. And the military career was coming to a close, and my kids were moving on, and they were trying to be independent from me. Oh, I'm trying to control their energy. I know. I had to run a tight ship. I had to make the trains run on time. We moved so much with the military. And I just didn't know, my vision became more focused on my husband and what was wrong the more the kids moved out, and he had always been to blame for everything, of course, my unhappiness, everything. So, yeah, it just got really ugly, and didn't know what to do. Tried the traditional, going to the marriage counselors, retreats for marriages in trouble. And yeah, we had some marriage counselors say, we can't see you together anymore because we would yell at each other and fight, and it was loud. It was bad. It was really, really bad. So, yeah, I didn't realize what a great guy I had. The guy that would bring me flowers, the guy that would stand in the doorway and just gaze at me. And I didn't realize how good I had it. I really didn't. He was an awesome guy, generous as can be. And I thought that translates to me as a responsibility with money.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got different perspectives now, but let's go back to before you got those perspectives just for a minute, because it sounds like, you were saying he's very easygoing guy, trying to keep his wife happy, and but there was a day when he didn't seem so easygoing anymore. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think I pushed him to the brink, and gosh, he started drinking more, and gosh, I had to nip that in the bud, right?
Oh, definitely. We can't. No,
it wasn't like a falling down drunk. He was drinking heavier at night, and I just didn't appreciate he was going through. He had been in the military in one way, shape, or form since he was 19. And here he was 52, 54. And his life was changing, getting out of the military, and I didn't appreciate that. So he was drinking more, had to take care of that. So one day I decided to throw all his liquor out, and I happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he was going to embrace that, of course. And so what I didn't know was something I threw out was sentimental to him, from someone in the military that had given him something, a bottle of bourbon or something, and I threw it out. And that was the last straw for him. Yeah. Okay. And he's really a big-hearted guy. And I took that as weakness. I've been the wrong perspective on things. So that's when that day he was livid with me, and that's when he roared that he wanted a divorce. And I had pushed his buttons for so long, and that scared me to death because I didn't want my family broken up. And, and divorce sounds, I've come to realize I don't think many people want divorce. They just want the pain to end. And, whoever the pain is surrounded with, they think that'll go away. But thankfully, I have some awesome friends who were also thinking, gosh, I'd really like to leave my husband. It was getting tough. We were in a similar position, lots of kids, been married a long time. And we all would just talk about how, gosh, we're still going to have to deal with those guys. And our kids are going to be brokenhearted. And we're still going to have to deal with holidays. And maybe they take on another spouse. And, just all the complications that come from that. So we all kind of were like weighing what do we really want? So I knew I wanted to keep my family together. And the more I was really involved with the skills and the Lower Doyle community, the more I realized what a really great guy I had.
Well, let's back up to how that happened. So because you'd been to these counselors, and that didn't help, and he says he wants a divorce.
Yeah.
And what happened there? How did we get from there to here?
Yeah, such a long and varied road. So I kept searching, of course, the internet. I had some counselors that brought some good things to the table. Some that just said, well, divorce or you need to get some power in the relationship, things like that, because I had not had an income for quite some time. And what I was trained in was engineering. And gosh, I was so antiquated with that. I graduated college before the gigabyte. What was I going to do? Work for the Smithsonian? I don't know. It was just, and I didn't want to go back to that. So I searched the internet, and, it's amazing what pops up. And then thinking back, I came across you and your book, The Empowered Wife, and then the Facebook page, The Adored Wife. And I got on that, and just, it really was like, wow, I have control. I don't have to rely on him to cooperate or to change. And that felt so empowering. It was extremely exciting. And, self-care was what? I thought my whole life was supposed to be about the kids and doing for others. And, I was so good at being a martyr. And I was actually also very good at being a victim too. So anyway, so I remember we went on I thought I would try to express a desire. And so I said, I would like to go, I'd like to go on a hike. So we got the two younger ones together, and we went, and they started squabbling. They're like an old married couple, those two. And before, I would have scolded them. I would have taken over, because that's what I did. I was the mom. I was always with them. So I knew what the right thing to do, the right way to parent. And this time I kept my mouth shut, put that duct tape on. And oh my gosh, my husband stepped up, and he took control of them and was reprimanding them. But I had always gotten in his way. I had always jumped in before he could react or respond. So, I was just so taken aback that that skill really, relinquishing control really worked. I just had never made space for him to parent. He didn't quite have a place in the family. He's gone so much. So that was incredible. And then that night, I remember we went to bed, and he spooned up to me, and he hadn't done that in a really long time.
So you became an irresistible magnet. Maybe the combo, of expressing your desire, and then also leaving a space for him to be the dad of the family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I never thought about that. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was, because I would jump all over the kids. Don't talk to your dad that way. I was always right there, because I thought that's showing being a team player and, I've got your back kind of message. But it was just cutting him out of the equation is what that was doing.
So this was after he had said he wanted a divorce.
Yeah.
And it scared you. You took it pretty seriously.
I did, because he had never said that before. You had never said that before. And,
Had you ever said it before?
well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was like emotional and reactive and, didn't quite know what else to do. I wanted to, he's very good at trying to elicit a reaction, the shock and awe methodology of being even in my parenting and in my marriage. The vulnerability, oh my gosh, I just from my upbringing, I saw tears as weakness. I really did. So those weren't going to make a showing. And so I always had this anger armor. If I was hurt, this anger would come out. And that's what I would use to theoretically protect myself and to let people know they were doing the wrong thing and to scare them. Mm-hmm.
What kind of response did you get from the anger and the armor?
That's really painful. That's really, really painful. I got distance. And my husband's response was he would tell me what I wanted to hear, or he would go along with my demands for a couple of weeks and then drop it, and it's just created more resentment in me. I'm estranged from two of my older kids, so that's really painful. Yeah.
Look at you now. You're so beautifully vulnerable. It's so attractive. So, and he gets to see this side of you now, your husband.
He does.
And how does he respond to?
It's kind of depends. It really, sometimes he's really, it's almost like whatever like when I'm in pain about these older kids, sometimes he'll be affectionate towards me, but sometimes I think he doesn't know who's going to show up. Still, I still struggle. I still struggle with that anger armor. It's been an old friend.
Yeah. Right. Our old friends.
Yeah.
Will come back to visit. My old peer friends visit sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you started bringing this vulnerability or expressing desires, and you're making room for him.
Yes.
As a family. What else did you do to change the way things were at your house?
I would say the first thing, this was such a struggle, was self-care, really. I had, again, thought everything had to revolve around the kids and what everybody else wanted. And really, that was kind of an easy button because they were just there. And I didn't think about myself or what I really wanted to do. Because really, even when I went to college, I picked engineering. That's what my dad did. It was kind of a family thing. I didn't know what else to do. And I thought I had to go to college. In hindsight, I would have been a cosmetologist. I loved cutting hair. I just cut it. So, yeah. So even back then, I was, I would have never thought myself as a people pleaser because my mouth can really get me in trouble. And, but I think I was. So even with my engineering degree, it wasn't me. And I continued with it. And so then kind of getting married was kind of an easy button too. And then I had kids, so I got to stay home and never really thought about, I don't know, it's so funny to have kids and then to not think about them leaving or what that would even be like in the space, the hole it would leave, and how that really, that void has to be filled with something, and kind of had to either look at me and control me or look at my husband and control him even more. And by the time he was done with me controlling him. So I really started, I love the two questions. How do I feel and what do I want? And I just, I love the self-care list and the desires list. And so even one thing, I looked at some crazy things, like even falcon rate. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And I looked that up. So just to That went, no, that was too much work. So,
What is it? It's falcon?
falconry. I thought it'd be cool to have a falcon and hunt with a falcon. And
Okay.
I'm like, anyway, I don't really like birds. So just like, raptors are cool. But I'm like, okay. But it was really neat just to kind of, wow, think and research and really explore what I wanted to do. And then I had always wanted a convertible, but I'm like, oh, that'll never happen. That seems like, I don't know why I denied myself so much or thought things weren't for me or good enough or I didn't deserve things. So I had expressed a desire for a convertible. And I had a few stipulations. I really wanted a four-seater because I still had some kids. And so we kind of eliminated one make of a car. It just wasn't for me. And I thought, well, that's the end of that dream. But my husband kept searching. And he found another make that they no longer had made convertibles, but several years back they had. And he found me a used convertible. And we went on an out-of-town trip to get it. And in our other car shopping experiences, I was right there doing the research. How do we get the best deal? And I would have been haggling and all that. And this time I just stepped away and I chatted with the salesperson, and my husband went and haggled with the manager. I still don't know how much that car cost. I just have my convertible. And and I'll put the top down in the winter. I just bundle up. I've got a pink fun fur coat that I love. And I like people turning their heads, see that crazy woman. It's like 34 degrees. And and that's who I was before. In college, I was just fun and going, against the grain and doing my own thing. And I became, I don't know, I created this other vision of myself, and that was still me. And my husband said I went from super mom to bohemian. So I started my bohemian. I started painting. Yeah, I tried a lot of things. I got invited to work as an absentee ballot clerk this past election year, and I had not had a paycheck in 23 years. Longer than that, 27. And I was like, wow, that was a lot of fun. And I also volunteered to do tax returns on our military installation. I got invited to do that. And I loved that people could see that I had value. They're like, oh, we think you'd be good at this. Would you join us? And that felt so incredible to have that again.
So these were all, so there was some experimenting, right? Falconry, yes. Not so much. Painting's good. Volunteering to do the tax return. Just kind of getting to see yourself in these new situations that you haven't been in for a long, long time. Was a form of self-care because it reminded you of your value in various ways, not just a super mom. It sounds like, which is phasing out, it sounds like, naturally and appropriately, but also kind of heartbreakingly, it sounds like. In a way.
It is, because I'm telling you, adult age kids, for me, are the hardest. It's really the hardest. So it's best they move out as soon as they can, so I don't have to see the decision. At the same time, it's exciting because I see them becoming the people they were meant to be. And with 6 kids, you can see so much variety and personality. And I have my fourth child, my 19-year-old son. That kid has been experimenting with investing. And he got involved in cryptocurrency and some kind of risky things, financial things. But I'm so proud of him. I'm like, I would have never been that courageous. So, I like that. I was a part of that. He actually was the first one to break out of homeschooling. Halfway through his sophomore year, he wore me down and he went to high school. And now I'm like, oh, everybody can go to school. So I even had to give that up. That was really holding on to what I thought the ideal was, and these expectations I put on myself that weren't serving me anymore. because I became very resentful about the homeschooling. I had burned out. I had created curriculum and designed it around every kid individually, and wore myself out. Really,
Sounds very tiring as you
it,
describe it. That sounds like a lot. But
it was, yeah.
yes. And
So,
so in the pursuit to be the ideal mom, it
mhm,
sounds like you also just kind of drained yourself
I
and
did.
and
I
became
did.
became resentful mom in
I
a way,
did.
right?
Oh, well, a big way.
Big
And I
way,
would
yeah.
say that I hate homeschooling, and I'd still keep doing it. And it was never this idea. It never occurred to me to let it go, because I thought I was going to do it better than any school. I knew these kids better. I didn't trust others to do the right thing. And I wanted them to read certain books and do certain things and have certain subjects schools didn't offer. And so I really am grateful that my son persisted, and he's the athlete, and I couldn't give him that. And I finally let go. And once I did, I let go of number 5. He's in high school now. And then the youngest, I couldn't have her home here by myself, because that was too much talking for me with the 11-year-old. And we were going to talk about what she wanted to anyway. But I found an awesome homeschool program she goes to. And so that really started freeing me up to do more things. Like now, thankfully I'm a coach, which has been an incredible experience. And I wanted to try that on and do this next phase of life as the kids are moving on.
So a lot of this sounds pretty scary, Dawn, right? Like putting your kids back in schools, other
Mm-hmm.
schools.
Mm-hmm.
I know training to become a coach takes a lot of courage, and becoming a coach. And, I don't know, even driving this letting your husband negotiate, right? Weren't you afraid he was going to mess it up somehow?
Yeah, a little bit.
Or a little
I didn't
bit,
think
right?
he would get as good a deal as I could have. But,
Right.
but I had let go of the finances by then. So and he did those differently than I had. But I'm like, I just don't pay any attention to it anymore.
And so this guy that went in and, and kept looking for this car for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then negotiated it for you. This doesn't sound like a man who's trying to get a divorce.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So what was the moment when you thought, okay, I don't think we're getting divorced anymore? Do you know when that happened? Or
It's been a while. I think, after, let's see, I'm trying to remember the timeline. So really I got into, the coaching program, and there were a few nasty fights, even after that. Just again, those old habits die hard, old fears die hard. So it's been well over a year and a half. It's been a while. I still do sometimes want to run away and escape every now and then. Reality isn't always a pleasant place to live in, but now I know. I don't. When I can feel hurt, resentment, anything cropping up, I really, once again, I'm like, okay, Dawn, how are you feeling? Oh, I didn't eat breakfast. It can be that simple. You need to go eat, girl. And you're feeling already kind of cranky. So get what you want. Go to the drive-thru, get the coffee line, get the, the bagel sandwich too. Just treat yourself. And, so I really pamper myself when I've let myself get depleted to the point where I'm feeling resentment or anger or irritation raise its head again. So, and I can tell, I'm like, ooh, I'm really getting better at scheduling my self-care and making sure I get plenty of that in. And, I've realized holidays, things like that are really stressful for me, especially with these 2 older kids that are still estranged. And so I really have to remind myself to schedule in some extra self-care. And yeah, I mean, I buy myself a Christmas gift now. I bought myself some Mother's Day earrings because they're just kind of harder times for me. So I try to treat myself better, more lavishly than I
Yeah.
did in the past.
So, like the old victim, right? She wouldn't have done that for herself, probably, by
Oh,
earrings
no.
for
And
herself for Mother's Day.
she wouldn't have been quiet either.
Oh, oh no. Yeah, no. No.
No, she
It,
would have had something to say.
right. And it's I always think of it as a kind of currency, like the victim kind of wearing the victim cloak. Like
Mhm.
it's a way, I know for me it was a way I thought I could get some recognition, some attention. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been there for a long time. I mean, since childhood. Um, yeah, I play. Yeah, that was something I used even in childhood.
Yeah, I think we learn early,
Mhm.
like, boy, if you're suffering, if something bad happens to you, that people will go, "Oh,
Yeah,
that's too bad," or right? You could get
yeah,
some empathy, some
yeah,
consideration, maybe some support, right? That way.
yeah, yeah.
But it kind of wears thin, and then it
Mhm.
stands in the way of being able to delight yourself with the bagel sandwich and the coffee and the
That's
potatoes and
right.
things like that, right? Because
Right.
then
Yeah.
victims don't get stuff like that in a way. So
No. Yeah.
yeah. So what is your relationship like now?
Um, it's interesting in that I'm even finding my husband is trying some new pursuits. Neither one of us had hobbies before. So I see him trying new things. I see us. He took me on a weekend trip, which he had never done before. We went to a cabin in the mountains, and
He
did
had
some
never taken you on a weekend trip?
no. And I will
Never.
tell you,
Okay.
I
All right.
had shot myself in the foot with that one anyway. When my fourth son was 3 years old, my husband wanted to go on a cruise. I'm like, what? I can't leave a 3-year-old. Are you kidding me? Blah, 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 blah. And I really think that was it. I slammed the door on his generosity and his romantic nature. And yeah. So so he planned it all. He found us a place to go, and it was fantastic, and it
How do
was
you
so surprising.
how did you yeah. You say how did you unshoot your foot in a way, right? Like from like how did he know that was gonna work this time?
Yeah, I guess he didn't. He had to be courageous too, and vulnerable. And I had also been the planner of everything. We really, our time in the military, we rarely went on family vacations because we were always moving, and we'd move or we'd go visit family. And so we really didn't make that time away as a family a priority. But I did start expressing desires, one of which was I would love to go away for the weekend. I would like to get out of town for a while, things like that. So he actually planned a family trip first, out of season. We usually go in the fall, and he planned a spring break trip to the beach. He loves the beach. So I was so surprised he did that. And then about a month later, and simultaneously he said, and I remember he came to me and he goes, while he was planning this beach trip, and he said, I want to show you something. And I'm thinking he's going to show me the room to the condo on the computer. And I see this cabin, like, oh, that's really, cool looking. He said, it's only big enough for the two of us. It's like, what? What? Okay.
Did you get like
So
butterflies in your stomach at that
it was like,
moment?
I'm a goosebump girl. So yeah, I
Oh,
was like,
you got goosebumps.
what? Yeah. So I was like, wow, things are really, I think our relationships, it's growing to something different, even different from when we first met. Uh, yeah. So we go out to dinner. He takes me out to dinner. He, the kids wanted to get me some Mother's Day things, so he takes them out and makes sure I get gifts. And he planned out a lunch and things like that. So again, he's that that thoughtful, romantic, generous guy that I beat down, because I felt like I didn't deserve things, or it was too expensive because I had my hands in the money and I knew better. So I thought, and yeah, so now he gets to show up and be the romantic guy and be the generous guy, and I get to see him differently for who he really is.
Yeah, he sounds pretty wonderful.
He is. He really
So
is.
it started with this spooning, and then he whisked you away for the weekend. We all know what that means, right? Sounds like there's some hot physical intimacy going on in this relationship. Was it always that way? Was that?
No, because, before we were married, I don't know, I was less inhibited. And then we got married, and I don't know. I was the breadwinner for a while, and then I was afraid of getting, oh gosh, I can't handle another child right now, or, what have you. And frankly,
shutting him down a little bit. It sounds
like. I was, because, and I was overworked, and we actually used a natural form of child spacing. So I was always in charge of that too. And, so I felt like I was always afraid I'd get pregnant. Not afraid, but I'm like, this isn't a good time for me. This isn't a good time for me. So, but then frankly, menopause has been great for me. So
that's been freeing. It has
been freeing.
Yeah.
And, so we've had some very steamy moments, very, very steamy moments. To include, he brought he brought some honey to bed one night. So he has some. He's thinking about things. He's a creative man.
Oh my gosh, such a good sign, right? When everything's going good there, it's like something must be going right at your house. But what it says is, sounds like he feels respected too.
I hope so. I know there are moments I don't show up as my best self, and I want to put that anger armor back on, or I want to let him have it for whatever therapeutic reason I think I have for doing it. And I just, thankfully, I can be vulnerable with apologies. And apologize for being, I hate them, but
yeah,
I'm not always good about doing it right away either. Sometimes I really have to work myself up and talk to a few friends, and and get my head right that I was wrong and I need to apologize for being disrespectful. And and usually that's met with acceptance and then an apology from him for his part. So that's it's huge, because we're both human, and I know we both came into this relationship with hurts and baggage and things, and we still both kind of hold on to some old habits. But I think, what I see is I keep picking myself up, forgiving myself for being human. I know where to go. I go to girlfriends. I go to some of my empowered wife friends, and they set me straight, and in the gentlest way, of course. It's most of the time. And then, I can move forward. I'm like, okay, and if he kind of, after one of those episodes where we're not showing up as our best selves, sometimes we both need a little time to let the hurt settle down. And I realized that I'm like, I need a little time to let the nerves and the hurt heal a bit. And I give him the same grace. Like, well, he'll come back around. I've apologized. I've looked for what I can clean up. And what I said was very hurtful. So I could see why it might take him a little bit of time kind of come back around. And Reese, I would love, since we were talking about sex, which I think is important. I've never talked about it. My parents never talked about it. I never talked about it with anybody, but we had a tiff and we had apologized, but there was still this, I wouldn't call it a Cold War, but it was a little like sensitivity, like a maybe fear of being vulnerable. So we hadn't been intimate for a few weeks. And I'm like, I've had it with this. So I went back and I listened to the module on physical intimacy and I tried on one of your phrases. So one night I said, I'm really feeling aroused.
Love it.
And he wouldn't say anything for a while, but I felt pretty good. It didn't bother me at that time. And he said, how aroused? How much do you need?
So cute. So playful, right? He was like, okay, I'll
yeah.
with you.
Yeah. And I was, and then, a few days later, I was like, oh my gosh, one of my Swoo sisters, she and I had a conversation. It was been several months ago. And I'm like, getting these cute 90s and everything. And he's not getting the hint. And she's just like, I'm texting her. I'm in bed with my husband. I'm like, because I'm like, why isn't he getting the hint? And she goes, ditch the 90. I was like, took it off.
Like, who needs this?
Just like, I guess he just needs more directness. So, now it's like, I'd like to have intimacy. So I just take my clothes off and get in bed. And that's all he needs. A naked lady makes a very strong statement.
She does. She does. And I love this, but it takes some courage, right? We're laughing right now. It sounds really fun. If you show up naked and then you get rejected, that can be scary, right? Maybe that doesn't happen at your house.
No, a few nights later, but I'm like, oh, he did go to bed early. Maybe he's tired. So it really helps to think, I think there's this notion guys are always in the mood, but they get tired too, or they're stressed out or whatever. And it's just about me making my desire known.
Yeah. So it sounds
honoring that.
You've gotten really good at that.
I have.
And it's Stevie at your house. I love it.
Yeah. So that's been, gosh, I'm just finding out who the me is now. She's not who met my husband. I mean, there's a certain personality. I've always been a bit bold. It was kind of a dichotomy, bold and fearful at the same time. But then there was, again, the supermom stage, and now back to the bohemian stage. And I think that gives me more confidence, more empowering, because I know what, things that are in there I didn't know were in there. Even my painting, it was always my older sister, my younger brother, that were just phenomenal artists, I thought. And so I always thought, well, I'm not as good as they are. Again, the comparing. So, when I started taking that on, it's like, wow, I can do this. I have some talent with it, and I enjoy it. So
it's your painting I'm looking at in the background.
It is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful painting of flowers. It looks like it has a lot of, it looks very, very, like there's a lot of depth to it. And there's like shadows and, right. So it looks sophisticated. It's not amateur, just it's like painting 101 to me. It looks like pretty, I don't know anything about
thank you. I know, that was actually my rendition of a Van Gogh. And
that is a Van Gogh?
Yeah, that took several months. I even took on a painting instructor to help me, and that was a few months in the works. That was.
What's the name of the Van Gogh painting?
Let me think. It's poppies, cornflowers, chrysanthemums, and peonies.
Very nice.
In some varying order.
Okay. So we can. So you can now. You know what the painting I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's that was awesome. And she, one thing I learned from that, I'm a very precise painter. I'm probably more do better with ultra realism. And I have a bluebird. I did like that, but she's like the impressionists are very much looser, and it's just an interpretation of a flower. And she was like, okay, we got to get you to loosen up and loosen up. And it's funny how long it took me. I can see how it loosened up as it goes clockwise through the work I did. And so that's really, what I needed to do for myself. It's kind of a metaphor for what I've had to come to. I've had to loosen up. I've had to let go of my ultra realism view of the world, what should be, the way it should be, because it just caused tension within me and within my relationships. Instead of loosening up and really just doing my best and giving maybe a loose fitting interpretation of what I thought the ideal was.
That's a fabulous metaphor. And I love that your self-care kind of mimicked the spiritual journey that you went on to fix your marriage.
Yeah.
Fix your whole family. So how has this affected your kids?
I tell you, so I'm still working on the two kids that are estranged. I have written letters of apology. The hurt runs deep. So I'm still hopeful for those relationships. And my girls are 11 years apart, and they're so much alike because they're like their mother, gritty and headstrong and opinionated and all that. So I did notice with my youngest, my 11-year-old, I'm not telling her how to do things. I can look back at my older daughter and see how controlling I was. Even with, she would go to a homeschooling program and she would come home with a little crafting assignment. And I was like right there and in there. Maybe you ought to do this and do that. And with my younger one, I just really, I sit back. I listened to her. She came home from her program, her schooling program, and she was talking about this person doesn't like me and that person, and, these judgments she thought people had of her. And I was able just to listen and not react or give advice. And say, oh, that sounds painful. Oh, ouch. Just with the skills, I opened up my ears. And instead of running my mind to solve the problem. And after that talk, she said, thanks, Mom. I just needed to vent.
Oh, and so you get the inside world with your 11-year-old. She wants to share with you because you're safe and you're a good listener. Yeah. And that's your coaching skills coming out there too, I bet.
I tell you what, I have learned duct tape. I always have an opinion, an idea, a way to fix things. And I just have to, just exercise those hearing muscles, those listening muscles, instead of running my mouth.
And then, and so you still have, there's 3 other kids besides your 11-year-old, your youngest. So how do you think it's affected like the family that you and your husband are, like there's this whole new way of being between you, it sounds like.
Well, I do know, because I have stepped back and allowed a space for him to parent. And I'm realizing the boys need him to be the heavy than me. So I think they're going more to him with their challenges and their needs. And that's a little hard as a mom. But 2, they have 2 parents now and not just the one. And I get to be the heart, which is what I always wanted, but I never knew how to get there. I didn't. And so I would say it's more peaceful. I know how to really even go to the kids and let them know. I express desires to them. I had to express one to my 19-year-old. He's been away at college, so he's gotten used to his carefree, his independent gentleman lifestyle. And I expressed a desire to him, and lo and behold, he fulfilled it. And I was shocked. I'm still shocked sometimes when my desires get met. I thought there'd be some pushback with it, and there wasn't. So I think it's more peaceful here. It's more respectful. And when my kids want to complain about their dad, or especially that 11-year-old girl, I was like, how would it be to go talk to your dad about that?
Mm. Yeah.
Instead of trying to fix it or complain about him or whatever. So,
Yeah. So what would you say to a woman who's maybe where you were, her husband's saying he wants a divorce. She's scared. And she wants to create where they're spooning, and he says, how aroused? And he buys her a sports car, and he whisks her away to the cabin for the weekend. And what's your best tip for her?
Oh gosh, you have all the power, and it's not over. And maybe that divorce is just wanting the pain to end, that threat. And just really look to yourself and see what is it in you that you're missing for yourself, and resolve that within yourself. And then you really know you've done the best you could, and you come out of it as the best person you can be.
And that in turn tends to make you this irresistible magnet.
Absolutely.
Just drive down in her pink fur coat.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's so interesting, this journey with the 6 intimacy skills appears on, or the motivation on the surface might be to save the marriage, but that is peanuts, frankly, compared to discovering oneself and shedding those old habits and behaviors that have held one back from being empowered, free, their best person, and walking away knowing I did my best. And when I don't do my best, I can pick myself up. I know how to get back to where I want to be. And that, for me to find out who I was after all these decades, to find out what I'm capable of, and that I get to direct my own life, and I wait for other people's decisions to guide that. That's incredible to me. That's been amazing.
Absolutely. It is amazing. It's such a relief, isn't it? To just not, I think for me, I just think about all the resentment I used to feel, and all the shrieking I used to hear coming out. I don't miss that anymore. Yeah.
No. And it's awesome because just that autonomy, and togetherness at the same time. It's a very interesting dynamic to have that, and to respect he's still, he's becoming his more authentic self. And I have left space for him.
So he's changed also.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. He's stepped out of I left space for him to be the dad that he wants to be. And I like to think I was the mirror for self-care, that he's tried some things, and there are some things that he's tried that have left sitting in the garage. Like, right? Too,
Falconry didn't work out for you either. So he's got his little mistakes too. That's right. But there's experimentation towards making yourself happy for both of you.
Yeah. And I get to see what he's into. It's like, wow, I didn't know you wanted to learn to play the harmonica. I didn't know you would.
Yeah. Who knew about that?
Who knew? And he may not have either. So it's exciting. And, not directing my kids, or as I used to say, dragging them to their destiny. Yes. Like the 19-year-old, he's investing in Dogecoin, and he got in on some kind of risky GameStop venture and made money. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love his boldness, and I'm not saying anything about it except, just saying, I know you're going to make the right decisions. I trust you to make the right choices for yourself. You've got this. You're so smart. You're so bold. All these great sun fulfilling prophecies. And, so I don't have to direct everybody.
Yeah.
It frees up space for me.
Yeah. So, what would you say to Dawn from before? You could go back and talk to her now.
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, Laura, I was always boy crazy. I don't know why, but I was. And that was such a focus of my life. And I'd say, gosh, just really, you have all these fantasies of things you'd like to do or be. Do those first. Honor yourself. And then look for somebody that's going to walk with you in that.
So you go way back. Sounds like before you were married even.
Oh, yeah. I'd go way back. And it's so interesting with picking a spouse. There's still time, did I marry the right guy, and then, but really being in this program and really encountering a number of women who have had arranged marriages, they're like, well, we got our problems too. It's not all perfect here. So I unwittingly married an awesome guy. And unfortunately, I didn't see how awesome he was until I, nearly lost it. So that was, yeah.
I so admire the energy and focus and commitment you brought to keeping your family together when that moment of truth arrived.
Mm-hmm.
You rose up.
Thank
and
you.
I think it's inspiring, Dawn, what you created
and
how you have affected it's the lives of 8 people that are affected by the work you did. And I just think it's so worthwhile. I admire it very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Laura. Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on and sharing the details of how you did it with all of us so that we can all rise up and have the kind of marriages we dreamed of having when we were little girls, when we were boy crazy.
It's always fantastic to talk with you, Laura.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week Award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice I find most unacceptable this week was sent to me by a wise student who hired a life coach years ago to help her sort out her struggling relationship. And I want to clarify, this was not a Laura Doyle certified relationship coach. This was some other life coach. And the life coach warned her at the outset that sometimes the more confident and empowered a woman becomes, the more she realizes that her husband is the one who has been holding her back. This life coach said that sometimes the wife outgrows the husband. So, okay. The student says she was in a bad place and she felt very sad, confused, and worried by this advice because she loved her husband and wanted her marriage to work. And she later found out that the life coach herself was going through a divorce with her husband. And luckily for me, she writes, I found your book and audios and hired a Laura Doyle coach. I now know that the opposite is actually true. I am now practicing the skills every day and seem to learn something new every week when I listen to the podcasts. My husband certainly seems to enjoy the new, happier, more confident me. And she continues, I've still got lots to learn, but now I feel secure in my marriage and know that any personal growth I do will only bring us closer, not drive us apart. So true. Very well said. And that has been my experience too, that thinking I was more evolved than my husband was not very evolved of me. But I remember having the same fear and feeling so sad that it might mean that I'd have to end my marriage if I got too advanced. Nothing could be more self-aggrandizing and further from reality in my experience. Maturing includes developing humility, accountability, wisdom, and gratitude, not a divorce attorney. And for that reason, this advice that the more confident and empowered a woman becomes, the more she realizes that her husband is the one who has been holding her back, is the very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. I want to give a grateful shout out to this courageous student who believes in coaching, which is all about investing in someone who can help you see your blind spots and live your dreams. You sound very empowered, and kudos to you. I also admire that you didn't fall for this total bologna sandwich of a lie about how when you're growing, you might outgrow someone you love. Not how it works at all. So thank you for sending me the worst relationship advice of the week. Award winner. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, we'll talk about 4 steps for making your cold marriage hot. And in the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I couldn't decide if I should get this gorgeous table setting at the home accessory store. So John said, why don't you leave it here at our offsite storage area until you decide?